Haven't bought a horse yet, have you?
No, I'm not getting another one.
A pony?
Nope.
A donkey?
3 dogs,
Get another dog.
20 chickens,
That's a good idea.
3 ducks.
You get duck eggs or just feed them?
I get duck eggs.
Good for you.
I trade with Kathy High for her bread.
Oh.
She likes to use duck eggs, and so
Oh,
I
yeah.
said, we'll work out a deal.
My godmother, Edna Weist, used to have a whole bunch of ducks down South Freeport Road. They made the best custard and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
My
Big
husband won't
oak.
eat one now. They're too orangey for him.
big yellow, big orangey yolks.
Yeah. I made a custard pie once, and I thought, he'll never know what's in it. And he looked at it, he sliced it, and he said, there's duck eggs in here, and you know I don't eat duck eggs. And I thought, oh my God,
Huh.
the dogs will eat it.
How are you? I'm gonna get over here for you.
Hi, Sally.
Sharon's here, so it's an official meeting.
It's an official meeting.
And Sharon is here. So. How you been?
Too well, Bob, how are you?
I love the county here. I'm good. So, that's a concern.
That's good. Yep, thank you.
You been down to the cemetery lately?
I have not.
Hi, Bonnie. Sharon, how are
have
you?
not.
I'm well, how are you?
Hi, Andy. How
Oh,
are
yeah,
you?
why? Good. Good.
You may have to refresh my memory on at some point why we can't have more towers in town because everybody's having major problems
Oh.
with AT&T right now.
Oh, I know.
All of them, all
I
the
got-
carriers.
yeah.
AT&T is so bad.
Yeah, they just banned them from private property except for the town water tower up on Beach Hill.
So AT&T told me we have the one tower and they have 3 antennas, but they've got one on Freeport Village Station. They've got one which
Do
is
they?
on
Do
with the
they?
tower, and there's one
On the water,
down
on
this
the
way.
I'm gonna put this right
I
here.
don't think so.
Route
It's
one
down
water
this- it's down that end.
Route 1 water tower?
Maybe.
Up on Pine Street?
Might be.
Yeah.
I went into something called
There's nothing
community,
down
and
that
then
way.
it
There's
said,
nothing.
You get into South Freeport,
Zero.
you get into South Freeport, and you turn by the Indian, everybody stops parks there because they have to talk on the cell phone.
it worked.
Okay, good.
So, oh yeah,
Something's got
this happened when Mo and Janice wanted to put up a tower and everybody flipped out.
Times have changed.
I know.
How long
I
was
know.
that?
Oh, a long time ago. 30 years ago.
Something needs to change. There's so many people on it. It's got to be affecting.
Oh, you know, in drive time, I lose bandwidth down on Route 1 because all the traffic on the highway. And then Metro goes by and I pick up their Wi-Fi and, you know,
Fun times,
oh,
right?
it's crazy. You know, my phone will just go, you know,
I
what-
can't even get mine to do it. Like my daughter texts me, and I don't get it until I go home. And I connect to Wi-Fi.
so I got Verizon down there, so I do pretty good with Verizon down
I've
there.
had U.S. Cellular, Verizon, and AT&T, and none of them are great. But Flying Point gets
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah,
Maybe
nothing.
the ledge has something to do with it because there's so much ledge
Yep,
down that way.
yep.
But,
Well, all that hill, you know, and then you're far out.
right.
You know where we live. We bought that consumer
Does it work?
program. We had to go stand out in the middle of the
Yeah.
road because we couldn't hear and nobody could call us.
It's crazy.
We
Well,
ditched
with
that.
everybody using it though.
Oh, yeah, there's more people using it than ever.
Well, how many people have landlines? I bet there are very few.
I do.
I got one. I
I'll
still
never
got
get
one.
rid of
They're
it.
not many though. Listen, there's more and more people that are ditching it.
It's well, it's on my business card, and everybody
Right,
knows the number, so
right.
today I
Well,
gotta
no,
call
I
my
hear you.
landline, you know?
You don't wanna get rid of
It's
that.
$40 a month for the do-nothing call, you know, I can't call out, they can only call in.
Right, right,
I mean, I can't call long distance.
right, but you got your cell phone service.
Yeah, I
But
got
still,
unlimited
who
on
wants to
that.
pay for all this extra stuff?
Oh my
you
God,
know?
yeah.
Especially when you can't use it.
Well, I get to use
Doesn't
mine,
work.
but if I'm watching, I don't have a TV, so all the time I watch the news and stuff, I pull up a news show on my phone, and like today, it's like, bleh, and it goes off, and then can't get in,
You can't
no
watch a
bars,
full-
and no
yeah.
bars come up, you know? It's crazy.
It's frustrating to say the least.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I went over to the cemetery the other day and dug up some old plants somebody stuck on my mother's grave, which we can't figure out who put it there. So I dug that up, and my cousin called today. He bought some. He lives out in Gorham. My cousin Nate, and he bought a whole bunch of pansies. So we're gonna go and put those on.
Yeah, we'll start
We don't-
here.
Have they buried Helen yet? Are they gonna have a service for Helen at the cemetery, or what's going on?
They have a service for.
Boy, oh boy.
I went to that.
Yeah, you were right.
Yeah, Nate and I went to that.
I left my minutes on my desk.
Oh, okay, sorry, I did see that.
Oh, this is the minutes.
It was just minutes because we changed the minutes.
All right. As a reminder, if the board could please turn mics on for the record and the recording and the broadcast, that would be great. All right, it is my pleasure to call to order the Wednesday, June 5th meeting of the Freeport Planning Board. It is a few minutes after 6. We'll dive right in. Item number 1, as always, is an information exchange, and item number 1 is an update on the design review ordinance RFP. A lot of us are very excited about this. So, Cecilia, you have the latest and greatest.
I hope so. So we are excited about updating our design review ordinance because it has been challenging for a lot of people to follow it, and we're hoping that it will sync more with the downtown vision plan and be easier to work with. We did sit down on RFP. We had one candidate, and we are hoping to finish the reference check this week and hopefully then sign the contract and maybe, fingers crossed, start the work next week so that we get that done. And that's it for that update.
Yes, yeah, very exciting that there's, even if it's just a possibility, the possibility of starting next week feels like a milestone in what has been a long road to get to this point, so it's exciting. Good stuff. A report of items reviewed by the Freeport Project Review Board is item number 2.
Yes, so on May 15th, the Project Review Board reviewed mostly the shoreland stabilization applications. I think after that last big storm, a lot of people had issues, and they've been coming for these shoreline stabilization permits. There are all 7 of them. They were all granted, mostly on McCoy Drive. I hope I pronounced that okay. And we also had one application for senior housing. So that would fall under subdivision review and site plan review, and that would be for 42 dwelling units on 9.23 acres. And that's around the Lower Main Street and Varney Road. So that.
Where is it?
It's the,
Yep.
that project.
It's the dog one. yeah.
And on table, they will have a site walk and then move on from there. And that was it for May 15th.
Great. Item number 3, or sub-item number 3, I should say, is an update on status of current and future planning board projects. Obviously, we have the comprehensive plan, which we will talk about as often as we can, even though it's not on the agenda tonight, but it is obviously a big project that is ongoing. We have the design RFP, which we just mentioned, and then hopefully ongoing ordinance cleanup. And then we
Yes.
have several sort of, I don't know, I don't want to say mundane, but I mean a little bit mundane items on the
cleanup.
agenda tonight to get through, to come, update some things, and then,
We do have
On the
that
list.
pending cannabis application that we weren't able to make it to this meeting because we were still
Right.
waiting to get that attorney to, review it appropriately. That might come up on your next meeting, which will be July 3rd, and I will not be here, but Caroline will. So you could expect to potentially see that if we get it back in time from the attorney for that meeting. And if there's anyone who submits a zoning text amendment, we could also see that next month.
great. All right, and last on the information exchange is an update on the comprehensive plan. Do you want to take that one, Cecilia?
Yes, so this is the exciting work that the planning board has been doing. I just want to see a show of hands of anyone who does not know what a comprehensive plan is. Don't be shy. Anyone online?
Cameras can't
Okay.
see you, don't worry.
So I just don't like to throw out jargons
to
and
cut.
without knowing that everyone understands what it is. So we're excited to be working on the comprehensive plan. And we hope that if you haven't already, that you fill out our visioning survey and let us know what you think should be the vision for the future of Freeport. The survey is on, the new website now that just became live today, and I'm sorry for the difficulties that had with finding the agenda and items. I guess it did not transfer very well, but there is on the homepage, I believe, a button that will take you to the survey. So please share with everyone you know, your neighbors, tell them to fill out the survey if they can. You can do it online through the website, and you can also do it on paper. We have paper surveys here at Town Hall. You can fill it out, put it on the box. There's also some on the library. So please participate on the survey and help shape the future of Freeport. And also, please mark your calendars for June 12th. We're going to have the first public workshop. Hopefully, there'll be a lot of fun activities. It's going to be at 6 p.m., at the Freeport Community Center. And we're going to get some presentations about what the consulting team put together and look at data trends for Freeport and get people's feedback on it, and also some preliminary results of what the vision for Freeport should be at that meeting. So June 12th at the Freeport Community Center, 6 p.m. Please come. There'll be some childcare, child activities. Bring your kids, and we hope to see you there.
Snacks, right?
Hopefully, there'll be
Yeah,
some
I think
snacks.
there's going to be some snacks.
Okay, there will be snacks.
And I'm coming.
Yeah. You have to come, Mitch, come on.
I'm coming.
But you can also bring snacks too if you want to. Bring snacks.
So could I just make one
Oh, yeah,
point
couple-
about the comprehensive plan? As we're promoting it, can we try to make sure, you started by asking the question, does everybody know what the comprehensive plan is? And I was struck when I was hanging up some of our signs that it doesn't really say that.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? And so I think anytime we promote it, we should make sure everybody knows the comprehensive plan is a 10-year guide for the future of growth in the town.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it important for everybody to participate and say how much growth and where growth, that we're going to set over the course of the next year, a vision that we must abide by after that for the next 10 years.
It's not just
What?
growth and,
Is it-
I mean, I understand what you mean, but I'm saying it's also, it's bigger than just a growth plan, right? It's also sort of economic
Economic development.
economic priorities, whether it's,
Yep.
So basically, the comprehensive plan is big ideas or ideas and some implementation ideas, but also when we're making decisions such as, today there's a public hearing for some zoning amendments, subdivision amendments, then the planning board needs to find that the amendments that are recommended to the town council are actually consistent with the comprehensive plan, which is the vision of the community. So that's why it's so important.
I just want to add one thing there. There's going to be a public service announcement, we'll call it, going live, fingers crossed, tomorrow on social media, the town's website, and the comprehensive plan page about what a comprehensive plan is,
Great.
what we use it for, and the survey in the workshop. It's probably less than 2 minutes, but that should be going live and on cable TV.
Perfect.
Tom's
And so if
working.
everybody can share that with your neighbors in any form, I think it's important that as many people are involved as possible.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to shape your community. And before we move on, there was one sheet we are hoping that the planning, I know you're all here maybe for the public hearing, but we have to work on our comprehensive plan, per little things we need to do. But I added a sheet with sort of to help guide facilitating the June 12th meeting, and we're hoping that some of you will volunteer for some stations. And, yeah, so I know it was just sent as an email
Oh, that's
this
what,
afternoon.
that's
Yeah.
this. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let us know if you have any questions, and if you could, if we could all coordinate.
Well, how do we do that? Do you want to just make assignments, or is there anything we need to do in advance? Are we supposed to get there early?
Yeah, I think if we could assign it beforehand, that would be great, so everyone knows which station there will be.
You can just pick. I'm sure we'll all agreeably do whatever you want.
Whatever the team wants, okay, we can do that. We can plan on doing that.
Great. Item number 2 is, I've lost my agenda, but I know it's a review of the May 1st planning board meeting. Minutes, sorry.
Share.
It says meeting, but yes, minutes.
Sorry.
Everybody have a chance to look over this very brief document? And I think, didn't we have everybody last month? Is that true?
I wasn't here on that
Oh,
one.
okay. Wayne was not here, sorry. So as a reminder, Wayne, I know you know, but we'll abstain from the vote on this one. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as written?
So moved.
And a second from Mitch. All in favor? Excellent. So the minutes from the May 1st meeting have been approved as written. Excellent.
Does this mean Sharon wasn't there?
Yes.
Sharon, you're missed when you're not here.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, Sharon comes for our public hearings, which are the high priority. I believe there is still a recording of the meeting, though. for posterity, right? So even though the minutes
Yes.
are not written out, you can always go back and look at the on-demand video services for any
Yeah,
meeting.
unless it's like a workshop and not like a formal meeting,
Right.
then there's usually a recording that is posted online, so you could always watch any meeting you want to. And sometimes you could even watch it on YouTube and make people talk really fast and get to the point you were hoping to hear. So that helps too sometimes.
All right, item number 3 will be a public hearing to discuss proposed amendments to Chapter 21, Town of Freeport zoning ordinance, and to the official zoning map to be consistent with the proposed changes to the Freeport floodplain management ordinance. We'll hold a public hearing to discuss amendments for consistency with the proposed changes to the Freeport floodplain management ordinance. And any areas that will be at or below base flood elevation and adjacent to tidal waters will be zoned Resource Protection 1. The boundaries of this RP1 area will change in some locations with the adoption of the new flood maps. Celia, do you want to?
So we sent
Started here.
out over 900 letters, and hopefully a lot of you are here because you received the letters. So we hope that a lot of people found out about the changes. I believe Caroline will present the changes. There are changes that are kind of required because our maps are very old. We've been using 1980s maps, so at this point they're pretty outdated, and FEMA is pushing on the new flood insurance rate maps on us. And some people might have fallen out of it, and some people might have fallen into it. Yeah.
Caroline?
Hi, so, the town of Freeport participates in the National Flood Insurance Program, and as part of that, we are required to follow the guidance of FEMA and the state of Maine in adopting land use ordinances and a floodplain management ordinance. A couple years ago, FEMA came out with some draft flood maps, which they've worked on revising and had a lot of discussions with municipalities. They issued a final map for Freeport and some surrounding towns, which we have to adopt. And the town also has to adopt a new floodplain management ordinance, which is based upon a draft ordinance that the state of Maine provides to municipalities. That is something that comes under the purview of the council, repealing and replacing the floodplain management ordinance. So the planning board is not talking about that tonight because that standalone ordinance is under the purview of the council. What is under the purview of the planning board is some changes to our land use ordinances that will be impacted by the council adopting the floodplain management ordinance. Municipalities have to adopt the new floodplain management ordinance by June 20th, or they could become ineligible for their residents to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. So the council set the hearing on their ordinance. We're here before you tonight with really mostly minor changes just to make the ordinances align, which isn't something we've been great at in the past, so we're working really hard to update things as changes are made. So do you want me to walk you through all of them, or you want to take them individually? There's really a lot of duplication, to be honest.
When you say all of them, you mean the different chapters?
Yes,
Yeah.
so.
I think we might as well do that.
Yeah,
at
so you
once.
have changes to I'll do zoning and subdivision first. Changes to the zoning and subdivision ordinance. The model ordinance decided that instead of referring to the 100-year floodplain, which is a term most of us are familiar with, they're not going to call it that anymore. They're going to call it base flood elevation. So we had to strike the reference and the definition for 100-year floodplain, use the new terminology throughout, add the new definition, which is based upon the model document from the state. There's also new definitions, modified definitions for flood and for floodplain, and those are proposed to be added here as well, and then changing terminology. Overall, the changes are pretty minor. It's just going to mirror the new definitions that are going to be adopted by the council. On the zoning map, a couple years ago, when we updated the zoning map, we took the floodplains off of our map because we'd figured out that we were not accurately projecting the boundaries of them. And instead, we have note 1, which references the current FEMA maps, and as Cecilia noted, they're quite old. So proposed change to the zoning map is really just a reference to the new FEMA flood maps. The most substantive change before you tonight would be to the shoreland zoning ordinance. So we have the state's floodplain management program, and they have their own state staff, and we have DEP, and they have their own regulations and their own state staff. So 2 different sets of regulations. As you're aware, anytime we amend the shoreland zoning ordinance, we have to notify DEP. They have to review and approve it. We had reached out to them to see if they had any kind of preliminary comments with the changes made to align. They actually did come back with a few comments of things. This is non-binding, they'll have to look at the final, but they came back with a few comments. They said that we should mirror and include the definition of base flood, which we're already doing in zoning and subdivision, but because the shoreline zoning ordinance references, we should insert that. And you have this on a handout in front of you. And they also said because the terminology in the ordinance references area of special flood hazard, we should add that. There is one adjustment to the definition of flood or flooding. As the town has worked on the floodplain management ordinance with the state, the definition of flood or flooding under B, it references along the shore of a lake. Since we don't have lakes here, their suggestion has been made that we strike that from the definition of flood or flooding, which we were proposing to put in the zoning ordinance. And then further, for the shoreland zoning ordinance, for the measuring that line, they wouldn't take it from the shore of a water body. It would actually be taken from the normal high water line of the water body or upland edge of the wetland. That's consistent with shoreline zoning, so a DEP recommended that minor adjustment to the wording. So you have that before you tonight in the second handout. One side just has striking the reference to the lake in the zoning ordinance under the definition of flood, and then under chapter.
Could you help me understand what you're talking about the second handout?
The second handout has some amendments to what was published
that one,
before the meeting.
I got it.
Yeah, it has colors.
Okay, now I got it.
Everyone here has it. So the zoning just strikes the one word under flood or flooding, highlighted in yellow. And then under shoreland, DEP suggested we added the base flood, the area of special flood hazard. Those are again out of the floodplain management ordinance. And then they suggested a wording tweak here for consistency with the shoreland zoning ordinance itself. The council, again, will be taking up the entire floodplain management ordinance, which is a much more substantial and thicker document. They have a public hearing coming up on the 18th. I have had some questions, although it's not under the purview of you, about the new FEMA flood maps. They're on the new website, which launched today. If you go to the homepage, there's 9 boxes of kind of hot links, important things like comp plan, survey, and floodplains. There's a link right on there for floodplains. If you click on that link, you can get all these documents. You can see the notice that you all got in the mail, and there's a link right in there if you want to see the state maps in the existing and the proposed. You can click right on that homepage and see the maps there. We also have paper maps here. You can stop by code enforcement anytime. Again, somewhat of a tangent, but I know I've had some interest from the community in maps. So that's all I have for you. Happy to answer questions. And Sophie's here if you have questions for what the council's working on.
Florida Lake isn't considered a lake.
No, not for shoreline zoning purposes.
Just wanted to.
But it does have an upland edge, so.
Yeah, there are, I think, actually, there might be some wetlands mapped around there. Yep.
Right, just a definition that's better suited for our town and our.
Yes, yep, and that's something that, again, that was a tweak made after it went to council. Yeah, so right here, you can click on the new website, you can click on the floodplain, it will bring you to the maps, all the documents tonight.
Right. So, just to reiterate what Caroline already said, this is not planning board driven at all. It is coming through the planning board as a matter of procedure, but it is driven by our requirement to stay in compliance with FEMA, right?
Yeah, sorry, there's just one thing I want to clarify, which kind of is zoning, but again, it's tied in. So resource protection, environmentally sensitive areas that you can't build in, that note that we talked about amending, areas that are in the floodplain, or the base flood or below, are going to continue to be in resource protection one. So in abundance of caution, we did notify everybody in the district, so would be aware of that change, that they'll still need to reference the flood maps to see where that resource protection one district is.
Okay. Any questions from the board before we open a public hearing? And just as a reminder, this, technically speaking, this first public hearing is for proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance, which is chapter 21.
We need to do it as three separate ones, I presume.
Yep.
Okay.
And do we have, forgive me if I missed this somewhere, do we have draft motions written anywhere? Does anyone feel particularly? Yes, right there, sorry. Too many stacks of things here.
Yes, here they are.
Do I hear a motion to open public hearing?
So
Still
moved.
quorum.
Second.
Thank you, Mitch and Andrew. So the public hearing, oh, sorry, we do have to vote. All in favor? Wayne is, oh, Wayne's right there still. Excellent. So that's unanimous. The public hearing is now open. Anyone who wishes to comment on these proposed changes, as a reminder, please make your way to the podium over there. The microphone is already positioned to be able to capture your voice, so it does not need to be moved, and the podium is in a good position where it is for the cameras. So.
Zoning ordinance.
Yes, and this is chapter 21, the zoning ordinance. I know they're kind of all intertwined and serving, or the updates are serving a similar purpose, but we do technically break it into three different hearings.
Zoning ordinance and map.
Yes, right. Zoning, shoreland, and map. In that order, I believe. Oh, sorry, no.
Subdivision.
Subdivision, zoning, subdivision,
And shoreline plus
and
map.
shoreland.
They're three different ordinances, so we'll pick
Yep.
one.
Any comments? Don't be shy, or questions. Those are valid too.
The zoning ordinance.
Yes, so the question was, which document should we be looking at? The question, the answer, as Mitch said, is the zoning ordinance, which is chapter 21.
And the zoning map, which is, it's not much of a change that you will visually be able to see it, but it's just on the text on the bottom where we used to reference the 1980s map, and now we're updating that.
Right, so we're updating, basically updating to new data. Chalmers.
Hi, Chalmers Hardenberg from 11 Somerset. I have a question, and I know that Sophie and staff have been dealing with DMR in terms of loosening the requirement that any shoreline work be done by a professional engineer. And I believe, this is just based on an article from the Harpswell Anchor, that it's been loosened. But could you help me out and point where in here that is addressed?
That's a good question, Chalmers. I am also curious about the answer, and I'm very happy that our esteemed town manager, Sophie Wilson, is here to answer it, because I don't think I have the best answer for you, and I'm confident that she does.
I do not have the exact section, but I can tell you it is for wharfs and docks that are put in the velocity zones. Originally, the model ordinance said it had to be put in by an engineer with a stamp. Now it says it needs to be put in by a marine professional. If that person doesn't have a stamp, they have to provide the code officer with a description in writing of their qualifications to do the work. So in talking with the code officer, for example, somebody who has been putting in docks for 35 years without issue can say that they've done that and point to what they've done at some level. And the local code officer can accept those and allow the work to continue.
And where's that language? Is that language change? Is that a language change in here? Where's the
It
language?
is,
It's not before you guys, it's
Yep.
before the council.
it's the
Right,
flood,
it's-
it's the floodplain.
Yep.
So,
It's not part of our
Got it.
piece of this, but it is nevertheless part of the overall updates. Yes.
Sophie, is that for new installations only, or?
my understanding is no, it's for, yes, I'm sorry, the engineering and the installation, so that would be,
New installations, not updates or repairing your thing or anything?
I don't believe so, but, I've got Nick coming to the council meeting to talk about that. So that's gonna be on the 18th, and there'll be good questions for the code officer at that point.
What happened to the storage of floats and stuff as far as being a structure? I was at a meeting last year and they said there was some problem with DEP or somebody saying you couldn't pull your dock up on the shore in the wintertime because that becomes a structure.
That's an ongoing battle.
I think that's an ongoing
yeah.
debate, yeah.
That's,
Shoreline zoning, correct.
yeah, we've had workshops here in the past where we've heard from interested parties, let's say, who have strong opinions about the lack of provisions to build haul-outs for floats. I know a lot of people would like to see that. It's kind of above our pay grade, so to speak. We're all volunteers, as you know, so it's way above our pay grade, so. But yeah, it's a great question, and I would love to see that continue to be advanced, speaking personally, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Sophie. Any other questions or comments on the chapter, the zoning and map amendment, which is what we are currently speaking about? Yes, Andrew, you have?
When it mentions, probably Carolyn can tell me, we had a surveyor in here a while ago, talking about where we measure from. Does this language, normal high water line, solve that problem? I can't remember exactly what the question was, but I know he was trying to
Yes,
define where I
that
measure
was
from.
maybe 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah.
John Schwanda was here.
Yeah, I can comment on, so the issue that John Schwanda was talking about is
yeah.
that when we updated the zoning and shoreland zoning ordinances, we adopted the current definitions. When we did that, we forgot about the subdivision ordinance, so the subdivision ordinance doesn't have the current definitions, which is what caused the confusion of what the surveyor was talking about. So yeah, this is current DEP language.
And so
So does this solve the
this
problem?
solves the problem.
No, you'll see another round of cleanup for the subdivision ordinance, to be honest. We had a big round of cleanup going on with LD 2003, but the big round of cleanup was blowing down LD 2003, so it got divided. And it is on a long list of cleanup projects for the planning board.
Yep. Okay, but still on the radar.
Still on the radar, yes.
Yes, good evening. My name is Barney Baker. I just noticed on the zoning map, it still refers to the 1985 maps. I believe the resource protection lines are aligned to the new maps. I believe the footnote should say, refer to the new map.
There's a memo with the new map reference
Oh,
on one side, and
gotcha. Hey, knew there was an easy answer. Thank you very much.
You mean that will be changed? In the other sheet that I've now lost.
I don't think I've ever had so much paperwork for a meeting.
I know it's here somewhere.
Try to pack it.
Okay, other questions, thoughts, or comments? From the public specifically? No. Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close.
All right, and a second from Andrew, all in favor? All right, so the public hearing is now closed. we can either entertain more discussion if there is any, or helpful hint here, entertain a motion to adopt these changes as proposed.
I just want to say that I didn't see any hands up on Zoom.
Oh,
but,
sorry.
um,
Thank you
if
for that reminder.
Do
I
you want to
did
raise your hand?
completely
Let me know. I just didn't see any, so I'm assuming nobody in Zoom wants to speak.
Yep. Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry to those of you on Zoom.
Yeah, it is.
Anyone feel really excited about making a motion?
Well, is there a draft, or we have to make this up on the fly?
No, it's
There's a draft, and you could always use the,
Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah, there.
and you have the,
Right, we do have to make a note of these changes.
With those changes,
These
yeah,
changes
yeah,
on
yeah.
this, what do we call this page?
proposed
Yep,
amendments.
as amended at the 6-5 hearing. And I think there is a line in the 2011 comprehensive plan about protecting our natural resources
Oh,
that seems like
thank
it
you.
would
That's-
serve,
that was the-
it
that's-
seems like it would serve us very nicely tonight, probably 3 times, to be
Yes.
exact.
Yes.
What was the exact line?
Whoa, you're pushing me
You
now,
just said-
Mitch.
I just had-
It says, I
Protect
think it's,
natural
yeah,
resources.
protect natural resources and protect the environment. I don't remember what the wording is exactly, but that's definitely the spirit of it.
Rosemary has it
I'll
there.
try to find it.
Yeah, I didn't bring my binder is so outdated right now that I did not bring it tonight. Lest it confuse me.
Good news is your comp plan's probably up to date, because it's so old.
That's true. Hasn't changed since 2011.
Okay. I've got the comprehensive plan. Trying to find.
Yeah, so, there's actually a whole section that Freeport would be
Oh, good.
responsible stewards of
Okay.
the environment by providing incentive to develop land in ways that don't harm the environment, ensuring an adequate supply of potable drinking water, protecting environmentally sensitive areas, and continuing to improve air and water quality. Those last two seem like very strong candidates. Yeah, it may go on even. Nope, that's it for that subsection. So protecting environmentally sensitive areas and continuing to improve air and water quality. I think we would all agree, right? I don't mean to just,
Kind of.
sure, sorry.
No?
We'll make sure we don't run away with it.
Yeah, environmentally sensitive areas, that's the word.
Not written on Rosemary's comp plan, sorry.
You can write on.
Okay,
We're good?
You got it, or
got it.
I got it.
I've got it.
Okay, so be it ordered that the Freeport Planning Board recommends to the Freeport Town Council proposed amendments to section
21.
Section,
Oh, sorry.
section 102 and section, somebody help me here. I just had it.
It's not on the agenda, so.
It is, it's on the front of it.
Really?
Right. Chapter 21.
No, it's on the note. Well, we could just page through it. It's section 102 and section 30 something. Help me here.
Yep.
104 and 302, thank you. To section 104 and 302 of the Freeport zoning ordinance regarding floodplain definition, boundaries, and restrictions. The planning board finds that the recommended amendments are in general harmony with Freeport Comprehensive Plan that compels us to protect environmentally sensitive areas and continue to improve air and water quality.
Do we hear a second?
Can I stop you before you vote? I don't think you referenced.
And as amended,
Oh, yes, as amended at the meeting.
I think
So that would be back at the beginning. Propose amendments to section 104 and 302 as amended at the meeting. of the Freeport zoning ordinance as amended at the meeting.
Yep. And a second?
Second.
Andrew, all in favor? Excellent. Unanimous vote. And moving on to item number 4 is a similar public hearing to discuss proposed amendments to Chapter 25, which is the Town of Freeport subdivision ordinance, to be consistent with the proposed changes to the Freeport floodplain management ordinance. So this is a rinse-repeat situation here. Any questions that are specific to the subdivision ordinance, or we will, as a reminder, have to open and close a public hearing for this as well. So if any members of the public wish to, oh yeah, sorry, there it is, right there. So we got those for the next ones.
Okay.
Any questions from the board before we open a public hearing about the specific to the subdivision ordinance? So it sounds like there is an additional round of cleanup coming that will address the multiple references to upland edge or high water mark or hat or whatever, where we're.
Definitions to be consistent with shoreline
Yep,
zoning.
so that's a future project and a problem that we are aware of. We will be updating, hopefully, the subdivision ordinance for other reasons soon too. Not sure, am I not speaking loudly enough? That's usually not a problem for me, sorry, Tom. Any questions?
There's nothing in here that's different really than the other one.
Right, this is all
As a
about
reminder
changing
to
the
everyone.
definition from 100-year flood to base flood and updating maps.
So I had a question about Article 11.3 because I saw no changes there.
It should be 1.3, inserting the word management in reference to the ordinance.
Does that answer your question, Bonnie?
Yeah.
It's Article 1.3?
11.13, floodplain.
Oh,
management.
11.13. I got you. So I'll find our way there.
Yep, 11.13.
Yeah, it's a one-word change.
Page 57.
Yeah, page 57.
Do I?
58.
58, yeah.
Do I hear a motion to open public hearing? Who hasn't made a motion? Excellent. From Rosemary in a second, from Bonnie, great. All in favor? Public hearing is now open. Any comments from the public on this subdivision ordinance? I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
Great. Rosemary, Bonnie, you guys want, yes,
Did
excellent.
we add nothing on the Zoom?
Oh, yeah,
before we
and
do
nothing
that?
on the Zoom. All right, all in favor? Motion still stands. Public hearing is now closed. Mitch, you're going to keep railroading these?
I will railroad it through, yes.
All right.
Where's my notes?
Not to
So-
deprive anyone else of the joy of
No,
reading
right.
a motion at a
Great job.
town
All
meeting.
written out, you might as well keep going.
So be it ordered, the Freeport Planning Board recommends to the Freeport Town Council the proposed amendments to, and let me not mess this up this time, Article 3.2, Article 11.13, Appendix D, Appendix F, and Appendix H of the subdivision ordinance of the Town of Freeport, Maine regarding floodplain definition, boundaries, and restrictions. Planning Board finds that the recommended amendments are in general harmony with the Freeport Comprehensive Plan's vision. There's no amendments on this one, is that correct? Correct. Subdivision. It compels us to protect environmentally sensitive areas and continue to improve air and water quality.
Do I hear a second? Many seconds. We'll take them all. All in favor? Great. Sharon, if we need like an official second, definitely heard one from Rosemary for the record. And item number, what are we on, 5, 4, 5? Item number 5 is the last in this, what's the word, triptych. A public hearing to discuss proposed amendments to Chapter 65, Town of Freeport Shoreland Zoning Ordinance to be consistent with the proposed changes to the Freeport Floodplain Management Ordinance. I think you all know the drill, so I won't read any more than that. Any questions specific to the Shoreland Zoning Ordinance? Do I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
I move we open the public hearing to discuss the Freeport Shoreline zoning ordinance, chapter
Second.
65.
And a second
Yep.
from Bonnie. All in favor? Excellent. Any comments from the public, including Zoom? We're going to lump everybody together.
I'm just confused. We wouldn't be here about a newer. My name's Lucy Lloyd. I live out on McCoy Drive on Flying Point. The notice that we got asked us to come here because you were having public hearing. Doesn't seem like there's really any reason for us to be here.
This is part of a public process, so the notices are required by law to notify anyone who lives in these districts to make you all aware of changes that might affect your property. But there's no guarantee from the town that, one way or another. So it's an informational notice, and then the public hearing is a chance for people to voice concerns or, learn more about the process. And so that's the point of this or any other, there's a similar process among different boards and committees. It's not.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
However, you are welcome to raise other issues or ask questions
Well, I
later on in
do
the
not-
agenda if you'd like.
I'm really not here because I have any issues. I just came because I thought, as a community member, it says as a coastal community, parts of Freeport, so we live on the coast, so we thought we'd come. Some of the things that are confusing to me, it's not an issue, but it says some locations with the adoption of the new flood maps, which you're not doing, the town council's doing.
The,
Maybe Carolyn can
FEMA
help.
is doing.
Because
Looks like
Carolyn tried
Caroline.
to help us, say, you really should, I'm just,
Yeah, so I will say, I think in an effort to outreach to the public for legal obligations of the planning board and the desire of the council, like the council doesn't ordinarily notify, and they wanted to notify everyone. Because there was 900 notices, that's a lot of work and postage, so we tried to put it into one notice in hopes that people would read it and come to the hearing. In hindsight, it sounds like it wasn't clear of the division of what the planning board's taking up and what the council's taking up. So I apologize if that wasn't clear. The hope was to make you aware that we're talking about these things and
you
you
don't
should
need
show
to
up somewhere.
apologize to me, it's fine.
No, but it's good-
It's
it's
just a little
good feedback.
confusing as a community member to come, and then we really don't need to be here, but.
You can grab a survey on the way
Oh,
out.
we could.
We like having people
There's paper
here,
flood
but
maps you can look at while you're here. There's
Yeah.
lots of good things to do, but
Yeah.
I apologize if it caused confusion.
No,
but
there's no
the-
apology needed, I'm just speaking as
Yeah.
a person
No, it's
that
good-
I'd
it's
rather
good
be
to hear
home
that.
playing with my dog, but it just, the comprehensive plan is a little confusing too, because I know there is a comprehensive plan, so
Mm-hmm.
you're making,
we're updating the comprehensive.
so when I'm referring, like when I was referring that this is in accordance with the comprehensive plan, I'm referring to the 2011 comprehensive plan that we now operate under.
We have to
And
keep
everything
one on
we
the
do
books.
here has to be
Yeah.
in accordance with that plan. So now we're writing a new plan for the next 10 years.
so what happens to the old plan?
It's superseded.
It will get replaced by the new plan once
So
we're
do you
completed
take
that.
stuff from the old plan and put it in the new plan?
I would say
It's all subject to change,
It
but
dep-
for the most part, a lot of things will be.
it informs,
You
yeah.
go through it and change it?
Yeah, we update the data, and then we have new public, we're having this, we're doing the survey, and we're having the visioning workshop, and that will be to get a sense of where our community stands on issue and how they feel. If they feel the same as they did 12 years ago, then there'll be similarities. If, things have changed, then the plan could change, like the goals and implementation.
Sure.
See,
It is
I
being
learned
written
something by coming.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
All those notices did something because we have
Oh, yes.
approximately 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, Chalmers, you don't count, I'm sorry. 8 times more people. It's not that you don't count, I'm just removing you from the calculation to simplify the math because Chalmers is always here doing an exceptional service for the community. And I am not allowed to plug things here, so
You're not?
I'll let you guys figure that out, but, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if the notices should probably say you're welcome to instead of making it feel like you're compelled to. But
We said 900, what did you say we
Yeah, right. So actually,
9, that's actually very easy math. Now you count Chalmers to make the math easy,
But
right? So that's 1%, right? We
next
can.
Wednesday is actually a much more important meeting for community
Yes.
input, because we are writing this plan. It's going to take all year, and this is the first time we'll get feedback from the community. And
First of a couple of
can I
changes.
go down that road for just 2 seconds on the?
Sure,
since
why
we've got
not?
people here. So the comprehensive plan really has 2 parts. The first part is what's called an inventory. And so that says how many houses are here, how many businesses are here, how much is the economics growing, how many people commute in, how many people commute out, all sorts of statistics. How much agriculture land do we have? How
many crashes on Wolf's Neck Road?
Right. So it's really a statistical analysis of how does Freeport sit. And that work is largely done now. And so they'll be reporting out at next week's meeting what they've learned and what has changed over the last 14 years in Freeport, and, population and all sorts of things. And then the second half will be, and now what do we want to do about it? And this will be the first time the public will be talking, but there'll be more public input throughout the fall.
And I think for many of us, that's the sort of the start of the exciting part, right? Is the
Right.
part of where we sort of encapsulate everything we've learned, and we get a chance to talk about it and move forward with it and figure out what to do. And start writing, start figuring out what our policy priorities are for the next decade.
And they'll be reporting some on what they heard back from the survey about what is the vision for the community. So please, share your thoughts about what you think about the future of Freeport by answering those questions.
All right, we're off track,
Okay.
which is good. I think it's fine. I'm always happy to talk about the comprehensive plan to anyone who will listen. So, and thank you, Mitch, for taking us on that little detour. I don't even remember if we're in a public hearing right now or
We
not.
are. And I move that we close
okay.
it unless anyone else would like to speak.
Yep. And I have not seen any hands on Zoom. And so now we just need a second to close the public hearing. From Andrew, all in favor? Excellent. Public hearing is now closed. In the absence of additional commentary, questions from the board, I would entertain another motion.
Is there anyone who wants to speak to, don't yet? Oh, right, we have another motion.
We have another motion.
Oh, shoot.
The last one. Item number 6, now that all of
Guess
your
that falls on
paperwork is-
me, doesn't it?
Well, it doesn't have to, but
My-
you have positioned you got to be careful what you get good at, Mitch. That's what I always,
All right, be it ordered that the Freeport Planning Board, you ready, Sharon? All right, be it ordered that the Freeport Planning Board recommends to the Freeport Town Council the proposed amendments to Chapter 65 Shoreland Zoning, Chapter 65 of the Shoreland Zoning Ordinance to be consistent with Freeport floodplain management definitions, boundaries, and restrictions. Planning Board finds that the recommended amendments are in general harmony with the Freeport Comprehensive Plan's vision that compels us to protect environmentally sensitive areas and continue to improve air and water quality.
And a second? From Bonnie, excuse me. All in favor? Excellent. All right, that concludes the flood mapping and definitions updates over 3 hearings and 3 motions. Item number 7, nope, we're not there yet. Item number 6 is another public hearing.
Boy.
And we can potentially take action on this one as well. This is a different issue. So this is in regards to proposed amendments to Section 201, general restrictions regarding lots transected by 2 or more zoning district boundaries. So all of the board, I'm sure, will remember at least part of the discussion from last month in which we identified, I believe it was 3 sort of priorities and 3 kind of separate but related problems that existed with parcels that were transected by 2 or more zoning district boundaries. We identified kind of a quick fix that we wanted to undertake. Then another bucket was going to be taken care of by updating the maps to make the digital data, the GIS data, align more precisely with the paper map so that there was no confusion. So that was another part. And then there was sort of a bigger project that we were going to kind of kick down the road a little bit until we could take a more holistic look at how to deal with certain situations. And we kind of explored a couple of different ways that we might think about this in the future. And the language proved to be a little bit tricky, and the situations are too varied. There's too many possibilities for different combinations of zones and different sizes and different corners of the lots, and we needed more time. We were not going to solve it in one night. So that's where we are. We're hoping that this change is helpful to some people in town who have struggled with this issue where they are unable to do what they want to do with their lots for sort of technical reasons. And does that feel like sort of a high-level overview of how we got here?
Yes, I
Do you have
think that's a
anything-
very good high-level overview.
Anything else you want to add, Cecilia, to that?
Yes, I
Like maybe what we're
heard
asking.
that.
Specific of the
Yeah, I
change.
was just going to say, like, actually what we're proposing
And
would
go
be
through
good.
the specific
Yeah.
of the change, but also I heard that we are going to be sending out the map, so that work with trying to align it so it matches the paper map with the parcel lines will start being done. So that is already moving forward, so that is great. So the issue that we identified was that because the Resource Protection 2 district is very much created to protect the groundwater of, basically the groundwater from aquifers that we find, important because they are furnish water to our public drinking water sources. A lot of people in the situation that they find themselves on that Resource Protection 2 district, just like with the Resource Protection 1 district, and not being able to count that area towards your lot when you're trying to meet minimum lot area requirements or road frontage makes it very difficult. And we do allow that for the Resource Protection 1, so we thought that a quick fix would be to change that section 201H instead of that first amendment we brought forward. So this would basically be giving that right for the people who are under Resource Protection 2, just like with the Resource Protection 1, to count that area towards road frontage requirements and area towards
And
the
lot
lot.
size.
And minimum lot area. So.
Excellent. Any questions from the board about these proposed
If anybody's
amendments?
trying to follow along, it's this
Yep.
piece of paper, and
Thank
it's
you.
only one real change, which is on section H, and it simply adds research protection to the notation that is already there for research protection 1.
And road frontage requirements as well, 'cause that wasn't there.
Yep, so section 201, general restrictions is the one in question.
Yeah.
There's several affected areas because it's throughout, but I can definitely try to pull out a map for you. So here's kind of an example. Here's an example of Resource Protection 2. Resource Protection 1, which is also that flood zone. And a lot of people are in this area because it follows a natural resource. So it wasn't like really, we didn't draw it out to follow people's property lines, right? Because it's based on a natural resource. And they were able to count that towards the lot area when they're, have a lot. The issue we have, I can show over here, you see the dark green? It also does not follow property boundaries. That's the area that we're trying to add so that people who find themselves in the situation, and there are so many people who do find
Do you have an
themselves.
overview of the whole town that'll show these?
Let me,
It's all over town, really.
yes, it's all over town. Let me pull the zoning map from the new website now, which I don't know if I will. It's my first time navigating the new website. I was out all day today. So give me a moment. You guys can continue to talk, and I will find our, where we put our maps. Hold on.
Caroline, can you explain the difference between resource protection 1 and 2 and why there are 2 and not 1?
So Resource Protection 2 is designed to protect the aquifer recharge areas from a space and bulk standards. It's very similar to RR1. It has a 2.5 acre minimum lot size. It has a high, RP2 has a little bit higher land per dwelling unit, but you can still have one family, two family. There's some environmental protections in place, like storing manure, pesticides, and that stuff. Generally speaking, Resource Protection 1 is intended to be a shoreland zone. The example was given that that would include areas that are in the floodplain. Freeport historically had a resource protection. It split them into 1 and 2. There are 2 pockets of Resource Protection 1 that actually are not in floodplains. They appear to actually be protecting water sources, and those are on your list of things that need to be looked at in the future. So although most of RP1s along the coastline, you have a little bit, Tom's gonna come yell at me. You have a little bit of RP1 here, and that's actually protecting the South Freeport Water District and their wellhead. And then the one Cicely noted earlier, this is not floodplain, this is actually surface water that led into the old Frost Gully up there where Maine Water used to have a water source. They don't use it anymore, but those are 2 cases. So when knowing those need to be fixed with some scientific data behind them, when we got the latest shoreland, those 2 areas still remained RP1. More than you probably wanted to know.
And then the
but,
dark brown is the RP2.
the dark green is
Green,
the
I'm
RP2.
colorblind, so-
Again, those are the areas near the wells. I think up here, there's a community water supply up in the one kind of in North Freeport. And then the RP1, a lot of it you can't see. You know, 10, 20 years ago, we had a lot more RP1 because there were a lot more things like certain bird habitats that we had to regulate as a Resource Protection 1. But as we've been able to lift those restrictions by changes in state law, we have done that. So the area has shrunk, and most of the RP1, even when it was drawn, it was so thin along the coastline because it was just the floodplain that it was really hard to see on the maps. I think there's always a couple areas of RP1. RP1 you can't build in today. A house isn't a conforming use, but definitely there's more land area in RP2. So we see that more often that people are impacted there. And when we changed the zoning in Freeport to protect the water source, Freeport was overly cautious and has a bigger RP2 just to be extra safe with the water source. So there are quite a few people that can be impacted. Since I've gone on enough tangents, I'll just add one more. We are cleaning up the digital zoning map, and we're getting the project done now in this fiscal year because we had a little bit of funding available, so they're already working on it, and you might see us as soon as next month if we identify areas that aren't really changing zoning but need to be cleaned up a little bit and really warrant coming back to you guys. So that will further.
Would that be RP2 stuff? On the digital zoning? Or?
So our zoning map was created to look good on paper, but now that we're in a digital world, when you zoom in, it's actually drawn kind of sloppy. So here it looks like, oh, it follows the road, but when you zoom really in, it doesn't. The lines are in weird places. So it's really minor adjustments we're making, and the hope is we're really gonna help people that just have like a little sliver because it was drawn wrong. But it could be any zone, and then there could be some pockets where, lines have changed and things like that. That's really not what we're looking at cleaning up right now, though.
So the wellhead on Webster Road is RP2. How come that isn't RP1?
Back in the day, it was RP1. I think you actually brought that up at the last meeting. Because RP1 is meant to protect the shoreline. It's meant to take setbacks from the edge of the resource. So
Yeah, but
from a permitting perspective, it's somewhat problematic that we kept the RP1 there, like we've been doing near South Freeport and up near the water source, but we have to work with the water districts to change that and do it in a way that's safe to still protect
The one on Pine Street there.
On Concord Brook, you still have that as RP1.
Yeah, that's
That's the water company.
Those 2 water ones have been that way.
Those 2 blue ones, that's the one off Pine Street.
Yeah.
That's the wellhead off Pine Street, and the other one's Concord Brook, and those were surface wells up there, and I don't think they draw from them anymore.
Yeah.
They're drawing from Webster Road now.
Don't use this one right
No,
now,
but they still
there's
own
been
it.
Some changeover. This one's really weird. We've done research to see who's been through all the files. So you have the RP1 near the wellhead, and there's this really odd shape of RP2, but a lot of those hydrogeologic studies have not been updated
Yeah, a
since.
lot of that stuff's still the stuff we got
Since
from Bobby
Gerber did
Gerby,
our- yeah.
Bobby Gerby years ago. And the one on the, and the one over there, the big green one over there, that, I still say it has to do with, you know, the private wellhead they had at Desert Pines, I'm not sure, but.
Yeah, there could be community water in
But I think they
there.
hooked on to town water when it was over there. I don't know, I'd be interested to know if they still are on a community wellhead over there at Desert Pines. I
On
think
your, that's interesting, on your work plan, we have the RP1, RP2, some cleanup, and that would be an interesting one to look at, because I'm not sure why that one is RP2 then, were you bringing up?
Yeah.
Does that dark green include Pump House Road, you know?
I'm not sure, we don't have road names, but that's the correct general area, yeah.
The blue goes down the Pump House Road.
Yep, I believe it is in there, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Right, so the theory would be, if we don't need to protect that resource anymore, if there's no difference between, you know, if, basically another way to say it, I think, would be if RP1 provides enough protection, you know, the underlying zoning in the rural district provides enough protection to.
RR1.
Sorry,
RR1 or
RR1, that was,
RP2,
yeah,
yeah.
very confusing. Sorry, rural residential one provides enough protection, then we could
If anybody's confused.
shrink, yeah.
There is, the town is divided into zoning districts. This RP, resource protection, is an overlay.
Is
So-
not an
It's not an
overlay.
overlay.
I mean, it's not it's in addition. It doesn't change the,
No,
That's
it's a
part,
zone.
that's part of the problem, actually,
Yeah,
is
no,
like,
it's
that-
not
that's,
an
that's one
overlay.
of the, that's one of our proposed fixes.
you mean,
that
so
we
it's
talked about
not, so
last
you're
night.
not in RR1 anymore if you're in RP2?
Well,
Correct.
Correct. That's one of the issues with it, that we talked about last time, is one of the potential
That's the problem.
fixes.
That's the problems up
Yeah,
there.
that's the problem,
Yeah,
is it
that's
should be
part of
that way.
Especially with subdividing a big lot.
Yep.
That's
If you wanna
part
get-
of the problem, but then the shape, even if they were overlaid,
Yeah, cuts through lots.
Cuts through
also another
boundaries.
potential problem.
So,
Also
So-
on the planning board's work list.
Yeah, so we might want to look
need
at
to
a
do.
groundwater protection overlay or aquifer protection overlay, which is what most cities or towns do when they're trying to protect
That's
the
what
water.
it should be, is an overlay of
This
aquifer
could be
protection.
something I see, like talking about during the natural resources public workshop this fall and getting some community feedback and seeing if, you know, this is a priority of our community.
So how do we get to how do we get to a cleaner or more updated use as far as whatever you want to call RP2 is protecting what, you know, wellhead, whatever water resource thing? I mean, Bobby Gerber's was years ago.
Yeah, the last time we did it in the early 2000s, it was based upon data from Maine Water. We would want to work with a water
Sure,
company
sure.
on that. But again,
They must have some updated maps or something.
Freeport, at the time, Planning Board Council, I can't remember which one or both, they decided to take the old data and the new data and mix it together. So it's, in the area of the two wellheads, it's bigger
Yeah.
than what the data said, but that was a conscious decision that the boards at that time made.
I was just curious about these other RPs, the RP2 up there off the, up there by Desert Pines and over towards Pownell Road.
Yeah, there might be, yeah, there could be some community wells out there. I'm not sure. Desert Pines I'd have to look at.
Yeah.
Because you're right, I think they hooked in.
I think they hooked in when it came across to the ball fields and all that stuff. They're right around the corner. I think they hooked in because they had all the plumbing, I think.
That
so,
answer your question,
lots
Mitch?
to do. Yeah, lots to
Yeah,
do.
it-
I think it mostly, Mitch, the difference is,
Oh,
so, yeah, there's,
so that's very little difference between the restrictions in RR1 and RP.
right, so this was a very, which kind of makes the problem even seem more preposterous if people are then prevented from doing things that they would be able to do if they were all in one zone or all in the other zone. But the simple fact that their lot was in two different zones then made it difficult to do things that would have been perfectly sensible to do, or are
So
perfectly
there's a
sensible.
big fix to fix the map, but
Yeah.
the minor fix is what we're dealing with tonight, which is.
Yep. Yep. So, now that we have some background and potentially some, broader discussion. So, as we alluded to, it is, the actual fix is itself very simple. It is just a couple of words. I would have to pull out, where is it, my big pile of documents here.
It's right here.
Sorry, thank you, Mitch.
Section 201. H.
Yep. Basically just adding that resource protection district to this exemption, so.
Yep.
Any other questions from the board before we open a public hearing? Do I hear a motion to open that public hearing?
So moved.
From Wayne, and a second. From Rosemary. All in favor? All right. Any members of the public who wish to speak, please make your way to the podium. And again, as a reminder, please identify yourself. And this includes anyone on Zoom who wishes to speak as well. You can raise your virtual hand and we'll bring you over.
No one should object to this.
Hi, Melissa Mencher. I live on Route 1. I've lived in Freeport all of my life, basically. I worked on the comprehensive plan in 2011, and
Thank
the
you
Vision
for that.
2020 and all that stuff. And I would say that that's a very small change in words that has a humongous impact on our water, our natural resources, and I would hope that having all the lines and things done first before you make changes to this ordinance would be the way to go, because you can't see which properties are going to be affected. You can't, not from those maps anyway. And also that there's really no way to tell what the effects are going to be. Those were split into 2 resource areas for a reason when they were done that way. Freeport was overly protective for a reason. And so because a lot of work did go into that and a lot of people were very concerned about protecting and making sure that things, there's a reason that you have to count your areas away from the wetlands and away from what is protected. So I would hope before you guys make any changes that you can actually see the real impact per the maps and what people own prior to doing that. And other than that, I appreciate you all and thank you very much for doing this, because I know it's a lot of work and it's all volunteer, so thank you.
Thanks.
So who creates the zoning map?
The town does. So, for instance, do you mean like who prints them?
Who made
makes
this
them
map?
into the
No,
shape?
I thought I heard Carolyn say that the map that you had up, the town of Freeport zoning map,
Yeah.
didn't have appropriate, it wasn't up to date, the map.
Up to date in terms of, so what we have
Where
on
the lines are, like what
Yes,
the
so for
previous speaker was
instance,
saying.
there's this difference between when you have like a digital map, especially with the geographic information system, that software. What you see, this paper map that you look online, right, when you look at that PDF or when you print it, and we have it printed outside here on the lobby, right? It's a map that looks more simple, right? Because you're looking at such a huge area in a small piece of paper. But once you have the digital map on the software, that software is so powerful that you can zoom in so close. And once you zoom in so close and the lines might not align right, then you're like, oh, this property is now on 2 different districts. So that's the work that Caroline was saying, that we're going to contract out for somebody to fix those, because some of them might have been like, it could have, we're using the same file for so long and over, and sometimes something goes wrong. It's a very clutchy type of software. So it could be that at some point, different projections were used and it kind of skewed everything this way, and then we fixed it over here. So it's a map that we've been fixing since it was made digital, right, for many, many years that precede me and precede many of us. And eventually it gets a little messed up and you have to kind of clean it up a little bit so that those lines are, what you see on paper will follow what you see on the digital. Because once the code officer looks at it, he's zooming in on that digital, right? Because that is the data that we have, and that could be misaligned. So the town creates the map, it's our map, but
So,
using our
so
data.
if I'm tracking it right, the town would hire a consultant to do the,
Just this basic cleanup, because it's going to
Cleanup,
be a
yeah.
lot of like small editing.
Right.
And somebody who does that for a living, they can do it very
right?
quickly.
And then who gives a blessing on those changes?
Ultimately, I mean, yes, it would be the planning board, and then they would recommend it to the council.
It would follow a standard process where it would come to the planning board first, there would be a public hearing, so very similar to what we all just went through 3 times and are now doing a 4th time for this one, right? So there's a public hearing, there's a chance for the public to weigh in, and then the council can make the planning board can make a motion to recommend to the town council.
Thank
And then
you.
the council has a meeting.
Just
Oh, we're
what-
not done. The council has a meeting.
Before you go,
to
can you tell us who you
yeah.
are?
Judith Burwell,
Thank you.
50 Pine Street.
Yep. Right, so there's, sorry, so there is, so there, just in case anyone is curious, there, once a motion has been made here to recommend to the council, then the council has a meeting. They set the date for a public, they discuss the motion usually and the recommendation. They discuss the recommendation, and then they will set a public hearing, and then that public hearing is the meeting at which they can take action to make the ordinance. take
I just
effect.
want to make a
Long process.
clarification to the comments when I was addressing Mitch's in the map, because you guys had a conversation about this at the last meeting, and they were looking at having this impact all zoning districts, but then really, the mapping errors or, someone got out of the lines, we all do it. Well, maybe you guys don't do it. I do it when I color. People got out of lines. That's really not the big issue here. The big issue is really the RP2 is the biggest issue that's being impacted, and it would still have the same 2.5 acre. So they talked about cleaning up the map, and they wanted to clean up the map. They didn't want to open it up to every zone because they wanted to do the cleanup the right way. There's also people who, over time have split their lot, and they've split it into 2 zones, or property lines have changed, and this may not help those people, like those were situations. But the language here is really to clean up the RP1, RP2, and this map cleanup might adjust the line if they drew it messy, for lack of better terminology, but the general area of that RP1, RP2 with this cleanup is not going to change. So I just wanted to clarify that, because we were talking about multiple projects and map changes as a continuation of the last meeting. This is really that RP1, RP2, and the boundaries are going to really be generally the same. So sorry if that tangent caused
No,
confusion.
thanks for that clarification. I also wanted to make sure that when I said we're going to move, clean up the line so that align better, that will most likely not affect that RP2 district, right? Because that's following a natural resource, and that's it's supposed to be a non, property line boundary. What we're going to do to clean up is when there is these slivers, and it's just it might be 10 feet into a property or something like that. That's what we're going to clean up.
So, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I don't know if there's other public comments.
Yeah. We're still in a public hearing, but I also think
Can I take-
it's not
I mean,
such a
it's
huge public
related to-
hearing.
it's
Yeah,
related
no,
to a
we can,
comment that we
that's
just
fine. We can go back and
heard.
forth.
So, I'm sensitive to the comment you just made. I believe, as you just heard, the map cleanup might not really affect what we're talking about here tonight very much, because mostly the map cleanup is just.
It's a resolution issue.
It's a resolution issue. It's not going to change districts. It's going to just clean up the edges of the district, to be more precise. However, the comment was made, I guess the question is, what will this, so what the language says is that if you have an area, if you have a lot, it really only affects lots that are in 2 districts. And in almost all cases, if they're in 2 districts, it's going to be RP2 and RR, rural residential, because almost all, I think maybe all of it, maybe with one minor exception, all of the RP2 is surrounded by our rural residential areas. And there's very little difference between the RP2 rules and the RP and the RR rules, except about impervious surfaces.
In lot coverage and bigger setbacks, the RP2 has, I believe, a 10% maximum impervious area. And the one thing I just want to correct, we have lots that are in more than 2 zoning districts. I think the most I've seen is 4, so
Oh my
this is
gosh.
lots. In multiple zones, but in this case, you're talking about that one for the
So I think another
I guess I'm trying to
interesting,
make sure we know the damage that could be made before we make because I don't think there is any, but then we should check.
yeah, I think.
So the rural residential 2 district, I'm not sure because I'd have to open it, but I think that's that's missing the impervious surface. So it could also open up so more people that might have been prevented from splitting lots will be able to split lots with this change. So, it could lead to more development in the rural district. However, we do allow this provision for Resource Protection 1, which is the resource that we're protecting the most, or at least what we strive to.
So another sort of point of clarification, and I want to phrase it slightly as a question to make sure that I'm right, because I don't, but if I'm understanding this correctly, the provisions of the RP2 district would still apply in the portion of the lot that is in the RP2 district. So we're not reducing setbacks or anything like that within portions of the lot. So to me, and I think your point is very well taken. The way that I see this change is a targeted way to even the playing field for lots that are sort of excluded from certain opportunities on a technicality versus on the particular, versus on any sort of, I don't know, structural thing in the lot. It's part of where the lot lines are drawn and part of sort of how they happen to fall within our zoning. So that's the part of this that I see as a targeted change. If we allow so if you have 2 neighbors and they each have a 2.5 acre lot and one is entirely in the Resource Protection 2 district, and then the neighbor is sort of whatever, so has some percentage that's split, and the neighbor, because of that split, if they are prevented from doing something that would be possible to do in a lot that is wholly inside the Resource Protection 2 district, to me, it doesn't feel fair to prevent the lot that is split from doing something just because it's split. And that's sort of the situation that we're in, is that split is causing technical holdups with, dividing lots or not being able to do things that otherwise would be allowed.
It only affects 2 things, minimum lot area and road frontage. No, because in other words, you couldn't, if you have a 10% max impervious surface in RP2, that remains. But if you want to build a house in in the portion of the lot that's in the RR, and you have to have a 2.5 minimum, let's just say you have a 2.5 acre minimum, but 1.5 acres, half of it is in the RP2 and half of it is in the RR area. Right now, you couldn't build in the RR area because you couldn't count the land you own in RP2 for your road frontage. This would allow you to build in, is that right? Am I right?
I think you're mostly right, and I suspect that Caroline is going to correct the mostly part.
It gets tricky.
So this came up actually got brought up to you guys, actually reviewing files, this issue came up in the 90s. Planning board went another route, they just changed zoning district lines. So this came up during LD 2003, which we talked about creating housing opportunities in Freeport. We know this is a barrier to creating additional housing, because over 60%, I think it's actually closer to 70 of Freeport is in the rural zones, 2.5 acre minimum lot size. The council was approached by a resident who had a large piece of land with a little teeny corner in Resource Protection 2. So they had 10 acres, let's say. They wanted to create a 2.5 acre lot, but they couldn't, because if you have any little portion of that RP2 touching your property today, it needs to be 2.5 acres and 200 feet of frontage. So that is how this came about, and you're correct, it does just apply to lot area and the road frontage. Those are the 2 biggest issues that we see, and where it's really is a limiting factor. But you're right, resource protection, you still
It won't let you do anything in the resource
land
protection area
uses,
you
lot
couldn't,
coverage,
it just would allow
setbacks.
you in the other area.
Yep, land per dwelling,
It just allows you to count the land towards your dwelling.
or the front.
The
and-
reason
and
for
whatever.
me,
In both ways, like back and forth.
the reason for me to support this change is like I said, just to even the playing field, I think it's a separate conversation that I think we should have about transitioning to an overlay where we can be more targeted and where we can use data that hopefully we can go out and get in the next, I don't know, couple of years. It's not gonna be me going out and getting it, but, right? I mean, we've talked about the need to update these data, right? So if we can use an overlay and we can more precisely target the resource and protect it with a zoning tool that is better suited to that task, I think that, to me, is a better approach. And then as far as encouraging development in rural districts, I see, again, this is evening the playing field. I think if we want to have a separate conversation about how much growth and how much development we should be encouraging in rural districts versus in other growth districts, I think that's very, this is a time that we should be talking about that, next week. I'll put in a plug. We should come and we should have that conversation on June 12th because, I think I've been on the record before. I would love to see growth in this town in targeted areas, and I would love to see our rural districts protected and stay relatively rural. But I also, I recognize the need for more housing, and there are places where it's appropriate, places where it aren't, where it isn't, But I think that this board has a really good history over the last several months and years of taking a sort of fair approach of how can we even the playing field and how can we reduce the barriers where, one person 50 feet that way might have a restriction that is there just because of some sort of artifact of something. And how can we reduce those barriers and be responsive to people's needs? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Any other comments from the public or questions? Public hearing is still open, right?
It is.
Not going totally crazy. Do I hear a motion to close it?
So moved.
And a second from Andrew. All in favor? Excellent. So, once again, we will need.
I motioned out.
Yeah, it's just done. It's all right. You earned your motion stripes for the night. I don't know if we have is there a sample motion for this section, or does somebody else want to take stab at this recommendation? Assuming, I guess I'm sort of making the assumption that the board is broadly supportive of this, which may not be a correct assumption, but.
I think it's okay. I think it's okay. It just does sort of bring up the question, the need to make the map clear.
Yep, and the need to protect the resource in a way that is appropriate too.
Well, to understand the resource and
Right.
what the parameters are today as well.
Right, and that's it, I think that the planning board isn't so much in charge of, the planning board isn't at all in charge of the town's budget. So I think, if the, if there's a need to get some funding for something like this and people feel strongly about it, then the council should hear about it. So.
Yeah. Or maybe alternatively, you could just use the existing water protection zones and just use that as a
As a
groundwater
basis,
overlay and
yep.
then wait for the study, if the new study comes,
Yep,
use that.
great.
Work
Yep.
with the
I
water
think that
companies to
maybe
make sure they feel
that would
I
comfortable.
mean, is that a relatively easy fix, Cecilia, from a sort of structure, like to just sort of take the existing district and pull it up a level, so to speak, to make it an overlay? I mean, it would be a map amendment.
As I was talking to Nick Adams, the code enforcement officer, he said, that's what we had in Poland, it was an overlay. So there are like a bunch of like model, like aquifer protection or groundwater protection ordinances and language that, but I know we're super busy right now, so it's kind of, I don't want
But if we
to
have-
throw that as a project, but that,
Yep.
could be, if we can't afford a massive, engineering study of like hydrologic conditions, which is a very expensive study to be undertaken, you could use your existing data and apply it like that in the future.
And it's
Probably not
probably-
next month.
It's probably a change that would apply only to the RP2, where the RP1 probably makes sense to stay as a zoning.
Or both. I mean, if the RP1 on that area, not on the flood area, but on the area where it remained RP1, that it's not shoreland, but it's there to protect the South Freeport Water District and the other public drinking water source, you could incorporate that. And I mean, I think, just saying, my opinion, you could incorporate that into the other zoning district that the purpose of it is to protect the groundwater, which is RP2, and and you could make it into just one overlay district of groundwater protection. Future homework.
Yes,
But the
indeed.
comprehensive
Right.
plan will be a great opportunity too, to talk about this and talk about development in the rural district and what the town wants to see, whether we want to make it more restrictive or less restrictive. It's a balancing, difficult decision to do with the housing crisis and the need to protect rural, agricultural resources, so it's tough.
Does anybody come up with a brilliant and stirring motion on this issue?
Oh, come on, guys.
Wayne, you're a seasoned motion maker, not to put you on the spot.
I'm a little disorganized tonight.
There was a lot of paper.
Yeah, I know, yeah. We do have our parts of or applicable parts of the comprehensive plan from 2011 fairly well outlined. I would say that the same applies here, although also.
Well, no.
I mean, we're hopefully continuing to protect environmentally sensitive areas, but also,
Provide incentive to develop land in ways that
Yeah,
don't harm
exactly.
the environment.
right.
You have one more in you?
Oh, all right.
Good notes for the night.
Right.
Yeah, I gotta find all the right stuff.
You hit a triple, Mitch, you might as well bring it home, right?
All right, but now I need, oh, man.
It's hard to make these motions on the spot.
I just, here it is. This is it, this is it, this is it. Okay,
That's it.
we're getting there.
So it's,
Okay, so be it ordered that the Freeport Planning Board recommends to the Freeport Town Council the proposed amendments to Section 201, general restrictions regarding lots transected by two or more zoning district boundaries, and is to Section 201H. Plus I, what's in?
H and I,
Oh,
sorry.
H and I, yes, changes.
We're
to-
striking an I,
right, it's a strike, yeah.
strike.
Yep. A change in H and
A change in H and a strike in I.
Strike and I was just it was a reference to a district.
To be consistent,
The board finds this consistent.
I was trying to, I guess we just say that's what we're making. Don't you have to say regarding? I guess I've got it. Could you read that back?
Not yet.
201H, strike an I, to be consistent.
Yeah, that's as far, okay, to be consistent with the Freeport comprehensive plan that compels us to provide incentive to develop lands in ways that don't harm the environment and to protect environmentally sensitive areas.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Okay.
Thank you,
Oh,
Mitch.
Just want to say, we're not striking I, there's just a
Right,
striking of
yeah.
a reference.
A
and
strike in
Right.
I.
A strike.
A strike,
Strike of I.
not the whole thing.
It was just referencing Village Mixed Use 3, which we don't have anymore, so it's just updating that while we were at it.
Strike in I was meaningless. Okay.
All right, item number 7 is persons wishing to address the board on non-agenda items.
So if anyone wants to talk about anything,
Not used to actually having people in the room.
you may have the floor.
Oh, you got to be quick about it, because we will move right along to
To the
item number
next
8.
item.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Second,
Oop, I can't
Oh,
make it.
we need a motion.
I move we adjourn.
And a second from Mitch, right? All in favor? Great,
I want to thank you all for coming.
Thank you all, yeah,
It's
thanks for
very-
coming.
It's nice to have people here.
Thanks for printing these.